guys, Brent here from BYOTools, aka BYOT. Thank you for joining me, and today we are going to be working on how to make a ring, and more importantly, an engagement ring. And why is that? Because Brent proposed to the love of his life a year ago, and I will be getting married in T-minus 2 weeks. So we decided we wanted to make another ring for my ring, and might as well show you how to do it. Let's start it.
First off, you want to find a place that specializes in some type of jewelry making class, which is why I went on to Google and typed in jewelry making classes, and look what popped up. There you go. I did this at Pratt, and it was a great organization, and it allowed me to do a private class in which I was able to do this within 4 to 5 hours. You're also going to want to purchase your metal online. It's much cheaper this way, and it gives you plenty of options depending on what type of metal you want. I used Rio Grande, and it was a perfect website to use because they have so many different types of options in metal. And as you can see, this is why we did a class, because there's no possible way that we can have all these tools to make this one ring. Yeah. Now this is the ring that I made for Hillary. It's made out of sterling silver, and as you can see over the year, it has worn down a bit, but it's still beautiful and she loves it. And she still wears it, so she must like it. And of course, before starting the ring, you need to make sure what the ring size is. And if you don't know what a ring size is, just borrow a ring and hopefully it fits. Yeah. It worked out for me. As for materials, you're going to need this compass looking thing to score the metal and know that you have a nice straight edge. And of course you're going to need some type of saw to cut the actual metal, and someone to cut it. Look at that. Someone's ready to make a ring. And of course some cutting lube, because lube is needed in all different aspects of life. Yes. Another thing you want to think about when trying to cut this type of metal is to put very soft pressure on the metal itself and on the blade. Because one, you don't want the blade to break, and two, it is much smoother in its cutting procedure if you do not put a ton of pressure on it. It's just nice, easy strokes all the way through, and it will start cutting like butter at a certain point. Now the builder inside me did want to help at a certain point, but true love is true love, and our instructor informed me that I was not allowed to touch or make anything since I was the one that made her ring. So there you go. Oh, and remember that note that I said don't put too much pressure on the actual blade itself? Well, this happens sometimes if you put too much pressure. Yeah, whoops. But you know what? Nice and easy fix. All you have to do is grab an extra little blade, strap it on, and you are back in business. And as you go, remember just to add a bit of cutting lube, because the less friction on this, the better. And once you have the length down, you can score the side and then cut the side of the metal, and you have your nice, perfect little piece of metal that you'll be forming and shaping. Next up is stamping, so make sure you get your metal mallet as well as all your letters that you're going to need for your lettering, and go to town. Now, first off, I highly suggest practicing on some bare metal first, because they might turn out like this. Yeah. I suggest drawing a straight line down the center so you can align your letters better, as well as mark the center so you know what the spacing should be. I'll also suggest to tape the actual metal itself to the surface you're going to be stamping on, that way it doesn't move on you and get all squirrely. Now, I'll be completely honest, the stamping portion of this project was definitely the most stressful for me, because of the fact that you can only do this once, and if you screw up or you're not centered, it's going to look bad. So just make sure you take your time with making sure everything is perfectly placed, because you don't really want to wear a crooked little ring your whole life, right? Now let's play with some fire, because Brent loves fire. And first thing we have to do is we actually have to apply some flux to the metal itself, which is a product that we have to use prior to actually heating up the metal. This is a process called annealing, and we do this because we have to soften up the metal prior to molding it, because if we don't do this, then it won't form correctly, or at least it will be much harder to form. We gradually heat up the metal using a low flame, and we do this for about 60 to 90 seconds. Once it starts turning color, you go ahead and turn off the torch itself and then place the metal into some type of water bath. Once the metal is cool enough to touch, go ahead and take it out of the water and place it into an acid wash bath. Now this will remove all the flux that was on it, but make sure you then bring it to a sink and clean it thoroughly. Now, an easy way to start the molding process is to use this type of wedge mold. That allows you to just place the metal into the slot itself, give it a couple little taps, and there you go, a nice round ring on one side. Then you take a step mandrel, which allows you to size the ring appropriately, since there are ring sizes on the side of this mandrel. Bend it into position, and then at the last stage, go ahead and take a mallet and just hammer it the ends together. In the end, you should have something that looks like this. Yeah, I know, looks pretty rough, but we do this because of the fact that this is all excess material that we can now just cut off and have a perfectly sized ring. Then, after we have it cut off, we bring it to the flame, flex it, as well as heat it up again, put it into the acid wash as well as clean it up, and we are now ready to start soldering. As you can see here, these little balls are actually solder balls that we actually heat up pieces of solder to form these small little balls once they get up to temperature. As a side note, you may want to tie a wire around the ring so it doesn't move on you once you start applying heat to it. You will then apply some heat to one of the solder balls and pick it up and place it on the ring where the ends meet. You will then gradually heat up the ring. Just know that the solder, once it does melt, that it follows the heat, so make sure you're directing the heat where you want the solder to go or flow to. You may have to apply a few balls of solder to the crevice itself, just need to make sure that it's filled fully prior to start shaping and sanding. I don't know what it is about fire, but I sure do like work with it. I don't know, kind of troublesome. Oh well, moving on. After you cool it down and wash it, you will end up with something like this. Yeah, not much to look at, but my ring wasn't looking so good at this point either, so let's go and put our final touches on this and make it look pretty. We first place it back into the mandolin and actually shape it into position again so we have it perfectly round. We then take this cute little Dremel system and place a piece of sandpaper on the end of it. That will allow us to actually remotely sand the ring without having to do it by hand, which is really nice. And definitely saves some time, for sure. On the sides, we take a piece of sandpaper and actually just do figure eights on top of it. That will allow nice smooth edges. We also take a sanding block, which is just a piece of sandpaper that is taped to a piece of wood or a hard surface, and then actually sand the edges as well as the sides of the metal itself. We then took some white diamond buffing compound and actually used our Dremel tool with a little buffer additive on the end of it and started buffing the ring with that, which was a pretty nifty little tool and definitely saved some time. You want to make sure you take your due diligence with this portion of the time because of the fact that the sanding and the buffing portion of a ring is always the most important, especially if you want a nice, smooth, clean finish. And for an extra deep buff, you can always use some type of buffing wheel at the very tail end of your project. It'll make your ring look pretty. And in the end, you have one beautiful, sexy beast of a ring.
And there you have it, episode number 17 of BYOT done, good to go. This is quite the special project because of the fact that this is literally my wedding ring. And in all reality, it didn't quite turn out the way we were hoping to because of the fact that we need to sand as well as polish even further because we ran out of time on our class, but we can do that in another BYOT. But in any case, thank you for your time. Please like this video, please subscribe to this channel, and please let me know what you'd like me to do in the next video. I might do it. In case, thank you for your time, and catch you next time. Hey guys, I wanted to say a special thank you to the subscribers out there. We've been continuously going up, even though the fact that I haven't been quite as diligent with my videos, hence the fact that I'm getting married, and that kind of takes a lot of time to actually plan a wedding. Kind of crazy. In any case, speaking of which, this is the love of my life, Hillary, that I'll be married in 2 weeks, and she's a large part of the why I've been doing this channel, as well as the fact that she did create the name BYOT, so that's all thanks to hers. Brush those shoulders off. Anyways, in any case, thank you and catch you next time.